All right. Hello, everyone.
I'm good.
Welcome to another episode of Warhammer
Uh,
Weekly. Remember, if it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer. I'm going to assume Tom can't really hear me yet because he's screwing with his headset and talking over me. So that's fine.
Shut up.
Joining me, as always, for Warhammer Weekly is my co-host, Brian Dennehy. Tom, say hello.
Hello.
Also joining us this week is our special guest, Paul. And Paul, I apologize. I'm not going to attempt to say your last name as it has lots of vowels in it in unusual places. But Paul, maybe you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself.
Hey everybody, it's actually Keenert. So Paul Keenert. I'm here on the West Coast, so it's still pretty early for me, but happy to be here on with these guys. And it's always fun to talk about, random Warhammer stuff. So I'm a little bit of a smaller YouTube channel, but I've been making battle reports lately and things like that, and just a general hobbyist. Love painting, love playing, love talking about Warhammer in general. Anything nerdy, I probably do it. I'm a PhD student, so if it's nerdy, I love it. So
That
that's pretty much me.
that makes two of us.
Very nice. It's all academics then tonight. Fantastic. Yes, Paul has a great channel. If you haven't already subscribed to Paul, you should do so right now. Go look him up. I'll include a link to his channel down below, as I should have been doing on all of these. I don't know how I didn't do that before then because I'm a terrible person. So, but I will definitely include a link to Paul's channel. You should check it out. You can watch a lot of great battle reports recently, especially featuring Skaven. Now, Paul, you were an Ogre player for a while, but I've seen you playing a lot of Skaven recently, so I'm glad to see that you've left behind, the evil and come over to the light side.
Yeah, I played Ogres for about, really since I joined, which was beginning of 8th, probably right around a couple months after that book came out in 8th, so about a couple years of Ogres, hopped over to Skaven. It's been interesting. Kind of wanted to play Skaven in order to learn the rules because they don't do anything right. I haven't totally left behind the fatties. Haven't totally left them. They're still sitting over there, beckoning me from time to time. So
Well, very good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gotta have a couple loves. I understand. I get it. I understand how it goes. But as long as the Skaven are always held first in your heart, as the Liber Bubonicus instructs us, hold no god in your heart above Skaven, for they are your verminous lord. And I take that I absolutely hold that as true. All right, so let's jump right into the week in review. We had some stuff this week. Overall, it's been a little quieter week as far as rumors go, but it has not been silent, which is always good. The first thing we heard was that we got another confirmation on that terrain. It's seeming more and more like that's going to be a thing for sure. That in addition, as 9th edition comes out, we're going to get new big terrain kits. There was rumors of some good customization in them as well, and that the aesthetic for them will be based off of sort of two existing kits. Tom, do you remember what those two kits were?
Absolutely. They're some of the more favored kits out there. They were the chapel and the traditional watchtower. So if you remember the fortified manor, the fortified manor was functionally the chapel and the watchtower with like a connector piece and some fences. And so it seems like the aesthetic is going to be similar to that of the watchtower and similar to that of the chapel, which is a big win. I mean, those sets are fantastic. They are extremely expensive and hard to get hold of on eBay, and I'm glad that they're going to be returning to them. So as you can see, I think you can see my collection of unpainted terrain on the top of the bookshelf.
No, I think that's good, and it's just more information that the aesthetic of Warhammer is not greatly changing. Clearly, we're still in a fantasy-esque world here. We've seen previous rumors that say there was this sort of initial fear over a move toward a steampunk type of situation or something like that, and that's really pulled back, and the rumors have been leaning the opposite direction. And this is, I think, just another small piece of confirmation on that, so that was good. Surprisingly little spoilers out of Archeon. We got to see the White Dwarf spoil today, and we saw some pictures of the Wrath Mongers and Skull Takers. I can never keep it straight, but I guess that makes sense. You don't take Wrath or Monger Skulls.
Something, kill, stab.
Exactly, yeah.
Corn symbols and spikes and horns.
I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of these models.
That's, you pulled the words right out of my brain. Absolutely. Now that I saw them up close, the Skull Takers especially, I found their aesthetic to be completely uninteresting. They looked like just bad Blight Kings, like human up top, way too much armor on the legs. They looked boring. I just thought, frankly, they looked silly. It looked like they were trying really too hard to make the model fill that 40 mil base, right?
Yep. Like arms flailing all over the place, like just ridiculous.
I almost wish they went with like the 40K, the new 40K route with like the 32 mil round, like something in between, maybe like a 30 mil or something. Like if you're gonna introduce something new, especially with a new edition, why not go somewhere like that? Because like you said, the 40 mil just seems too big for some of these models. And even the Blight Kings, like it's a little small. So I think like someone right in the middle would have been nice, 30, 35. Missed opportunity, but.
Yeah, and I don't really see, like, if you're exactly as you said, if it's a brand new kit and a brand new edition, like, why couldn't, even if you kept it on squares, why couldn't we have a 30 mil square or something like that? Like, is the world going to blow up on a 30 mil square? I don't think so. And yeah, I mean, you really, with the Blight Kings, at least they were big fat guys, so at least they kind of felt like they were trying to take up the space because you need some more room for the gut. I get it. But with these guys, they're pretty trim. Korn keeps it trim. He doesn't like laziness or sloth. The Blood God wants you to hit the gym. He's got a lot of guys lifting weights, staying fit. Yeah, they're bros, exactly. Corn bros. And yeah, it feels like they're just trying to be like, I got this whole base, it's all mine. The Wrathmongers looked a little better because they looked less human and so a little more monstrous and kind of fit, but like the swingy flails and stuff, did not like the look of those. Those look like cartoony in a bad way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that some of the bits might be popular for conversions for standards and stuff like that moving forward, like if people have Khorne armies, but I just, like, for the models themselves, like, I'm really struggling to imagine putting some of those on the table. Like, it's not working for me.
That's probably going to be a pretty expensive conversion kit, though. I mean,
that's why there are bit sites. That's why there's bit sites on eBay.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not afraid to raid a bit site for some pieces. Like, that's true. Like, some of those, if they weren't at the wonky angles they were at, or you were just using them on other larger models, I could see it. So, Tom, any other rumors you can think of or news we want to touch on?
I mean, the only other small piece that we got was that this week they released a gameplay trailer for the Vermintide game, which is the End Times Skaven first-person like adventure game that they're going to be releasing in Uber's Reich. But obviously that's just tangential to the Warhammer world.
Sure.
So, but
now,
again,
are you playing as Skaven?
You are not. You are murdering Skaven. The whole point is to kill as many Skaven as possible. They basically pulled out like zombies from these types of games and put in Skaven in their place. And so you're just running around just mass killing Skaven as they've infested the city of Uber's Reich. So
what you're telling me is this is another in a long line of classic or of modern games where you're playing the villain, because clearly these humans are the antagonists, killing the brave Skaven defenders of whatever their home is.
Yeah,
I assume sewers.
No, there's a Bright Wizard, I think, and a Witch Hunter, and a couple other standard no-name Empire folk that you're just
murdering. The evil guys, the bad guys. I got it. Yeah, I'm with you. The enemies of truth and justice.
What I do find interesting though is that this game is still in alpha, like early development, and it's set in the end times. So it's just a real curious decision from a game release. Like if you're talking IP and stuff like that, like if End Times is going to have like a 9-month window of being on the market before we get into 9th edition and this stuff rolls away. It's just a real interesting decision because, End Times may be gone off the shelf by the time this game hits the market.
Well, when you look at the long and storied history of Games Workshop products in video games, there's just so many good ones. And don't forget about...
Hey, dude, Warhammer Online was one of my favorite MMOs.
No,
Like,
it was all right. Yes, absolutely. Not that it didn't have its share of extreme problems, but yes.
if they just
Doesn't
balanced
be
that stupid game,
Warhammer
it would have been
Online.
amazing.
Yeah, it had some issues, but
Or like making me
still
addicted
Camelot
to the entire
Unchained.
summer. My girlfriend still rolls her eyes at how much I played that game.
Hey,
I think we were all there.
my Realm Rank 80 chosen had no problems with balance.
All right. So the only other piece of news that I thought was interesting was something you linked me, Tom, and I haven't been able to find anything else on it. But I went and looked, and it's still up today, right before the show, so I feel fine saying it. It exists on their website. So everybody's familiar, I assume, probably, who's watching this with Blue Table Painting, which is a painting service. And Tom, earlier in the week, he sends me a link that Blue Table Painting they have a store where you can buy, armies and stuff from them that have been painted, as well as their services and all this sort of thing. And there's a link in there for like Blue Table exclusives, and if you click on that, it's one of the top links on the side of the page in the store. You get taken to the item is Blue Table Painting by the company, and the item cost on it is $440,000 for buying Blue Table Painting. So for all of our listeners out there, if you are interested in picking up your own professional painting service for the low price of only roughly $500,000, probably after everything else and lawyers, you too can own Blue Table Painting. And what I particularly found hilarious about this was that it actually says, like, there's a buy now button, and then under it it says, do not buy this through the website. Send us an email so we can negotiate the terms. Like, was that a necessary note? Was somebody really just going to click through and throw that on their Amex? Like, is that what was going to happen? They were just going to see that ring in? Like, well, we got to sell the company. This guy, he just charged it to Visa. It's everywhere he wanted to be.
How is this real? This can't be real.
It's
on their website.
So this is under store?
Yeah, go to store and then on one of the top links. I think it's like Blue Table Painting exclusives or something like that. Like, you'll see a big list of all the mini brands or whatever on the left. And up top, you'll see like it.
Under premium services, experiences and services, I think. Is that
right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's there.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, I saw it and it's I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Thing. I don't even. What is this?
I don't know. Apparently, Sean is looking to get out of the business.
I want to know how they came to that valuation. That's what I want to know.
Well, you can send him an email, and perhaps in the negotiations and discussions you can find out, because I'm sure you can get a prospectus and such.
There will be no negotiations.
You got an extra cool $500,000 lying around you've been looking to do something with? Just got no place to park?
No.
I stole it off my island in the Caribbean, and I've really been looking to reinvest that money.
Into a bad... never mind, I'm sorry. I won't...
Yes, we won't set any opinions. We'll just say that, sure, they've had a storied history. How about that? And so there you go. All those out there, could be that BTP is under new management very soon. Maybe it could be you.
There will be name recognition, at least.
That's true. Absolutely. Hey, it is a brand. It is probably the most recognized brand in painting service. I mean, that does have extreme value.
That's like the smartest kid on the short bus. What does that even mean?
And you too can learn about Blue Table Painting just by Googling Blue Table Painting, or maybe Blue Table Painting Review.
Sure, and we will leave it at that. All right, so that's our news for the week. News and rumors. I expect in the next week we'll have a lot of big news because, of course, we will have the release of End Times Archeon this Friday. Don't forget if you're interested in pre-ordering. Now, I had heard the idea that this one is going to be available in stores. Is it, Tom? Have you heard a confirmation on that one yet?
That's exactly what I was going to say. So for those that want a hardback collector's edition, be prepared to be on the website at 1:58 on Friday, because the reality is that Eastern time, because the reality is that it'll probably move as fast as Kane did.
Yeah. So there we go. Yes, that'll come out, and I'm sure we'll learn all sorts of interesting things about the story and such and what happens. Obviously, there's a lot of big movement in this. We've been building up this Archeon thing now for almost 20 years, so it's about time we pay off this little canard. I remember when he got introduced, and I found him just as uninteresting then as I find him now. But hopefully he wins, or dies, or something happens. That's what I'm aiming at. All right. So let's talk about hobby time. So, Paul, you're the guest. What are you working on there? What paints are you getting off of that fantastic paint rack behind you to work on?
Clearly a fan of Reaper.
Yeah, I do like some Reaper. I like some Vallejo too now. I'm a little big fan of the Game Air stuff. What do I got on the table? So I got a pile of Eldar here. Got some jet bikes. I'm working on these guys.
Yes, that was that incredible piece of freehand you did. I really love that. You should hold that up again real quick. Because I do want to put a pin on that. It's just great work.
If I can look. See if we can get something like that a little better. So doing some freehand stuff to play around. Let's see. I just started this a little while ago. This is going to be golden black work. And do some metallic metals on there, so that should be kind of fun. And because I couldn't resist, I ended up getting a Forge World Slan here.
Very nice.
We'll see if I can get that guy painted up to match his skink friend. I had one of those nights last night where I found a mold line on him that was damn near invisible until I started putting paint on him. And then I had that emotional time of scrubbing him off with isopropanol the entire night and raging and kind of being like, I'm never painting this stupid model ever. That only lasted 15 minutes.
Well, at least you found it there. You know, I usually find mine when I'm putting on like a final touch, and then I happen to notice it, and I'm like, oh, how did I miss that for 10 hours of working on this model?
Yeah, so that's what I got. I got about a bajillion boxes of other crap that, you know, got to work on this. This is freaking huge. This is abnormally large. I don't play 40K. I never intended on playing 40K. I thought we were playing a miniature game, but I feel like this is like part of like Tonka trucks or something. Like
I for a brief time considered back when I played 40K, considered putting together an Eldar Wraith army. That was before that big thing existed, but because they have the best aesthetic, and that model is stunning. But you're right, it is like if it comes alive, it will legitimately kill you. Yeah, it is large enough to pose a threat.
What was that movie, Toy Soldiers or something, a long time ago? Like I'm worried at night. Like I don't want to catch a star cannon to the face while I'm sleeping. I'm just not thrilled about that idea.
Absolutely, that's how I think that's exactly how it would go down. I mean, they're possessed by ghosts in the game. So you're really just asking for it. You don't need to find a tiny Eldar to pilot it. Ghosts just take over it, and boom. I mean, this movie's writing itself. I'll tell you what, after the Warhammer Weekly is over, we'll get a script together. We can get this greenlit. Okay,
so I'm up in a loft, and I actually have this tiny, terrifying door right there, too. So I have the ghosts ready.
Fantastic. All right, Tom, what's on your table right now?
Still working on my spider horde. I got some of the purple glazed finally. Let me see if I can get some light on this.
Oh, that was yours. Very nice.
Yep. So there we go. Yep. So got these bad boys glazed finally. So we'll start working on some highlights and see where they end up. So.
Is this a counts as Orcs and Goblins deal, or is this a?
It is. It is. I've been working on I really like the Force Goblin aesthetic, and so I'm doing an entire Force Goblin army, largely counts as. So even my orcs that I'm doing as Force Goblins. So I have found some other models for my Black Orcs and my Savage Orcs, and yeah, and then I've basically hand-built all of my siege. So that's what I'll work on after the Spider Horde. So, yeah, should go well. Looking forward to it.
Very nice. And I myself am working on much the same thing I've been working on for quite a while now, which is, and will be working on for some time to come, which is Bretonnians. Here's my current one in progress there. You can see he's on his column as he's leaping into the action. Here's a little knight that's going to be on top of them. There we go. See? Ooh, there they go. So, yes, best part about flying models is the ridiculous bases you can put underneath them. There's all the rest of them, and then we're done right there. Those will all go up on the PMP sometime when I finish them later this week. So yeah, Bretonnians, nights that never end. All right.
How are you enjoying painting every single model individually? Has that been refreshing or terrifying?
A little of both. I mean, every model is a character. That's really what Bretonnia is. And like, though I could take it simpler than I am, because you could just do like yellow on the back part of the barding and red on the front or something, and then switch it the other time, and you don't really have to, and then just do the shield to be some different color or something like that. I don't do that. Every one I end up doing like complex patterns on and stuff like that. Because I feel like I'm only going to paint this army like this once in my life. So, don't rush it, right?
I like the aesthetic of the lance when it's all different like that. I think it looks really nice on the table. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And it was one of the things that motivated me to do it, is it is an army unlike any other. Sure, your men-at-arms or archers or stuff like that are batch painted all the same as anybody else, but the knights, which are truly, of course, the core of the army, are really, you don't have any other armies of characters, and where you get to be that individualistic with your paint and color scheme.
You can do that with ogres, probably.
I mean, a lot of them are just fleshy, right? Like, it's not, they should still have a similar thematic, at least per unit. You think of, like, Lord Inquisitor's ogre army.
I individually painted a vast number of my ogres, and it's much slower than you would think. Especially if you're a fan of trying to get flesh to look right. I think I spent about 2 years doing about 1 unit of ogres.
That's a long time.
Yeah, so
I can believe it.
But the fat boys are certainly advantage, low model count. Disadvantage, bigger models that have to be painted slower. Like they are more difficult to factory line unless you want to just literally go like flesh and colored pants and call it a day. But I see lots of conversions with ogres, and I think that's because you do have the lower model count. So if you want a more complex conversion or you're going green stuff, you're not doing 50 individual men-at-arms or 150 Skaven slave, right? You have a bigger palette to work with on an ogre.
The only thing you don't get is unit fillers. Because a unit filler in a unit of 8, it looks kind of dumb.
Just one ogre. You just don't have an ogre. Something else on the base. Yeah. All right, very good. All right, well, that's our hobby time and what we're working on. Remember, as always, to share what you're working on in the PMP, Painters Motivating Painters. It's a Google Plus community under the Warhammer YouTubers, and if you're not already a member, what are you doing? Should be. Send me an email. We'll get you in there. It's a great community of people who encourage each other to paint. We put up pledges. We try to meet them each month, and we give each other friendly advice and feedback and critiques and all that sort of thing. And we'll be doing the show reviewing the end of the month submissions this Friday. So look for that as well. All right, with that out of the way, let's move on to our Q&A, or to our feature this week, which is the best of the best, one of our rotating and returning segments. In the best of the best, we cover the best of the best, at least in our opinion, of the Warhammer world by various categories or types or whatever else we feel like segregating them into that day. And today, we're going to talk about the best of the best in war machines and spell lores. Ooh.
Does this have
a lot
to be
of both of those
classified
things
as a war machine?
Judges? I'll say if you can give me a good defense of why you think it's really legitimately a war machine, even if it might not actually be that thing, then I'm all right with it. I don't know how the East Germans are going to take it.
I know some very nice chariots that shoot things, stuff like that. I mean,
Ragnarok has a catapult.
yeah, War Machine.
Yes. Let not monsters that happen to strap flinging things to their back. That's what I would say. Those are clearly monsters. All right, so Paul, you're the special guest. Why don't you start it out? Let's do War Machine first. What is your pick to the best of the best War Machine, and why?
So I gave this some thought, and it's so hard to pick one. There's a couple good War Machines floating around right now. I would say my least favorite, because it's competitive and just hurt my ogres, and I had to play so differently against my ogres, is the Chaos Dwarf Magma Cannon. That's probably my least favorite War Machine of all time, because why in God's name would you let them shoot a template basically across the board that's strength 5 with D3 wounds?
Flaming attacks too.
But I would say, I think there's so many factors that come in, right? Because some of the dwarf war machines aren't really per se better individually, but the fact that you can give them engineers and rerolls and upgrade them, like some of the stuff like the souped up organ gun with an engineer next to it. I mean, that's some heavy points, but that thing can do some damage. So
sure, well, you can count it however you want. If you want to factor all that into your decision, hey, that's fair.
Yeah,
you just got to defend it.
So I mean, factoring it all in, I'm gonna have to say Iron Blaster, because those things have destroyed so many things for me. I guess a close second would have to be if not pulling past Iron Blaster would be the Skull Cannon, even though I absolutely despise the concept, and I think that's why I put the Iron Blaster in front of it, because I think that it's a dumb model and a dumb concept. So I'm gonna go with Iron Blaster, just being able to move and charge and pivot. I've never been let down by that thing. I mean, hell, even when it misfires, or even when it has nothing to shoot at, it's still a pretty mean chariot. So you really just get the best of both worlds. And got a 4-up armor save. The toughness is crazy. It's got way more wounds than most other war machines, so you can really out-cannon other things too. Yeah, I have to go with Iron Blaster.
I think that's a really fair choice. Absolutely. I mean, the best part about, maybe one of the, not the best, but one of the best parts about the Iron Blaster is, unlike all the other war machines who just bring dudes, this one brings ogres on the back, which is a nice advantage. Everybody else just brought some sissy elves or humans along, but this one was like, no, let's put some ogres on the back of that thing. That's their ogre.
You know what I have to admit? I'm a competitive player, and I played ogre for so long, and I would say it was probably a good 2 years before I actually took the Noblar attack that was on the bottom of that damn thing. I was in a tournament, and some guy's like, "Aren't you gonna attack with a Noblar?" And I'm like, sure.
That's pretty awesome.
I didn't know that little dude on the bottom counted for anything.
Think of all the point you could have gotten. I mean, single digits at least, if you had remembered that attack for 2 years.
I mean, I would have at least won several GTs had I been doing that the whole time.
I think that's probably the only thing separating you from like literally top of the Masters.
Probably.
In your current position.
Probably.
Is that Noblar attack. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, what is your pick for best of the best war machine?
Well, it's funny that Paul mentions it, because I've in the last couple weeks, or actually for probably the last 2 months, I've been toying around with Chaos Dwarves. And I figure if I ever want an army, now is probably going to be the time to do it. So I've been reading a lot and looking into Chaos Dwarves and kind of plotting out and budgeting, and so they've been on my mind recently. And I have to be honest, I think the Magma Cannon is probably my vote for the #1 siege, just because, again, as he stated, it's shooting a template halfway across the board. Basically, instead of a bounce, you get the AOE template forward, and it does a D3 strength 5 hits on the area, D3 wounds, flaming attacks on it, and so it's a beast of a cannon, rolling in at like 150 points or something like that. So it's and it's actually classified as a siege, like a piece of siege. Otherwise, I would have probably chosen the Iron Demon, because it's kind of siege, and it's a big. I mean, it's a train. How awesome is that? So yeah, probably the magma cannon. My runner-up was going to have to be the Doom Diver. So I love me some goblins, and it doesn't get much better than shooting goblins at your enemy. And if it has higher accuracy than a lot of other siege does, and it has some punch to it, and it's flavorful and economical, and I mean, yeah, for point wise, it's not hard to fit in your army.
Anything in the Warhammer world that kills knights quite so well is a goblin with a pointy helmet.
That's absolutely true. He hits that unit and just like I don't know how he does it, given the size of him. How does he actually kill that many knights, right? Like
he just shoots through them.
It's the most ridiculous angle. He's like the Kennedy assassin. Like I don't know how the bullet travels like that. It's ridiculous. There was a second Doom Diver on the grassy knoll. That's the only explanation.
And luckily, you do have the points for a second Doom Diver. So
also because they're dirt cheap. Yes, absolutely. As Lord Tremendous would be fond of saying during his commercials, they are dirt cheap but solid gold quality. Yes, absolutely. All right, and my pick for best the best. Well, given my love of Skaven, it would be easy to say, like the old Warp Lightning cannon. It's a great cannon, as it were, because it doesn't stop in things that normally stop cannonballs, and it has a big template at the end, and all this kind of stuff. The problem with it is it's highly unreliable, and as everything in Skaven is, and to me it's fun, it's good, it's a necessary part of the army, but it just doesn't raise up there. I am actually going to pick as mine your second choice, Paul, which is the skill cannon. I think the skill cannon is the best sort of like war machine, if we're allowed to count those sorts of things. Like it is, of sorts. It's really again more of a chariot, but whatever. In the game, just because that cannon, it brought something to the table for demons that they were just sorely lacking. They didn't get to play in that phase at all, and then all of a sudden here's this new thing that lets them do that, and do that pretty well. It's magical, it's flaming, it's a chariot, it's got bloodletters on the back, it can heal wounds back when it slams into people. I mean, what is not to love about that monstrous, giant, phallic, flaming cannon just hauling across the battlefield and shoving your demon phallus into your enemy? That is exactly what Khorne is all about. That's what Khorne wants from you. He wants you to give them the business. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it serves a really necessary role in the army. I think it's a good answer to a lot of things. Like, I definitely hate seeing it across from Skaven because, nobody likes... Your Hell Pit is not a fan of that weapon for obvious reasons.
Mine certainly is not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to see that. When you see two of them, you're like, oh, yes, he's dead top of one. That's fine. Like that's how that's going to end. So that to me is what makes it stand out, both its place in the army and just the tools that it has. Cost-wise, it drifts up there a little bit, but again, in Demons, everything is expensive, and it's worth it.
For what it does, like 65 slaves or whatever it is, 60 slaves, you're like, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, Iron Blaster's so broken, and then the next book they were like, oh, you gave an iron, it's 30, okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it almost gets more of a pass. Like, certainly people hate skill cannons, but I think people hate skill cannons less than they could because Beasts of Nurgle exist. Like, Beasts of Nurgle exist, and they're like...
Oh.
Yes.
I just want to see who freaking designed those. I mean, him and the Brolock person, I just want to put them in a room and just beat them until they can't, like, see straight.
Sure.
Love me the Brolock.
You had to play one freaking game to realize that I think that this might not be balanced. Just a thought, maybe.
Yes. And that's what I love. I love that stupid beasts exist. I never use them. But I'm glad that they exist because whenever anybody complains about anything else I take out of Demons, I can just be like, look, I'm not running beasts.
And so, they're like, sure. You have probably the fairest demon army of all time.
Yeah, Never put a Beast of Nurgle on the table once, and I don't ever plan to. All Nurgle things are disgusting. Sorry if I'm a fluff player, but I don't want to vomit while running my army. That's just where I draw the line. So, that's how it goes. All right, so there you go. That's our war machines, but don't forget, put your war machines and what you think is the best, and why in the comments below. We want to see it. All right, next up, spell lores. All right, now here we're talking about the total lore. So we're not just talking, the signature spell, the spells in there, the lore attribute, availability, all of this can factor in however you want to defend it. Paul, once again, you're the guest, so that puts you in the hot seat. Go right ahead.
So I'm going to have to take this, I guess, from face value of best lore in a competitive sense. And I think it's still Shadow right now. Because if you look at the meta, Elves are still winning. ASF is great. High initiative, high leadership. Occam's Mindrazor. Miasma is probably one of the best signatures in the game. You have Wither, you have Enfeebling Foe. I mean, there's just a lot in that lore that's really good. And then you can kind of combine it with, was it the lore attribute? You can kind of do some cheeky things with hopping around characters and stuff like that. I think there's just a lot of utility in that lore, and it's just really not ever gone down in value. It seems like even since the start of 8th, people took Shadow as pretty good, but it was it was up there as top 3, and I think it's just stayed there. So I think that consistency is also putting it up there for me. 'Cause, I mean, you remember when everyone was taking Lore of Life? I don't know if this was on the East Coast too, but 8th edition started, everyone was taking Lore of Life, and then people figured it out and kind of dropped it because there was really only 2, maybe 3 spells in the lore that were really good.
Right.
But people consistently take Shadow, I feel like, and I think with the dominance of Elves currently, it's just a very strong lore.
All right, I like it. Yes, there is nothing like a well-timed Mindrazor to absolutely ruin someone's day, no doubt. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Miasma it's solid. I mean, as a signature spell, it's very good. We're gonna have some Q&A later, and that's gonna come up. So maybe we'll circle back to that as your answer. We'll see. Tom, your lore.
It's funny because Shadow, it's a really strong lore, and it's just banging on all cylinders, except, the only thing that it's really killy. It's buffing, debuffing. It's good at debuffing. It's good at buffing, and it's good at damage. But it doesn't have that other final piece, which is kind of the defensive, Healy piece. And because of that, for me, I think Life is still the go-to. And probably the reason for that is because I play so much. I play Elves so much that I'm normally going to have a second caster to lean into. That it seems like that can bring me some damage. That can bring me some offense. But with for me at least, Life still takes the cake.
Oh, sorry. So I just want to hit on that real quick before you move on from that.
Yeah.
So I guess with me, especially if you're talking about Elves, if you look at it and say, there's not much defensive, but I mean, with Enfeebling Foe, I think that's a strength one, right? And then with Miasma, I mean, if you're talking about Elves, you're talking about having a higher weapon skill to begin with, right? So if you can Miasma someone, that's pretty easy to do with weapon skill down to a point where they're hitting on 5s. You're saving 16% of the wounds you're going to take anyway. So I respectfully disagree. I think that it actually is a fairly defensive lore. I mean, I feel like saving 16% of the wounds you're going to do is probably the same, if not more, than what you're going to regrow with Life,
But obviously that's going to be completely dependent upon your target and their weapon skill and who you're hitting. Yep. So to reverse that, looking at from a buffing standpoint, for healing, in addition to how do I say this? The Dwellers is it's short range clearly, but it's a good offensive, especially in the meta. In my opinion, if you're facing other Elves, it is a backbreaker spell in my opinion against other Elves, from my experience. And if you have a strong meta of Elves, it does a lot of work for you. Throne of Vines is fantastic alone because it again, it just depends on if you're running Banner of the World Dragon, and but it can sub out your Banner of the World Dragon if you want to be able to spread out the concern of not having to bunker your caster in your banner unit, and then on top of that, Throne then turns flesh to stone and regrowth up to 9.
I guess and that's the other thing I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, just not really bringing to the forefront, is that most people around here are Band of the World Dragon, so you know what I mean. You get your defense out of that too, I suppose. So, in my mind, you know, how much more defense could you want than Band of the World Dragon, right?
Well, it's the question of, do you want to have 2 protected units or 1? Or you know, depending on how you're dividing that, and because I also like to run Alariel, and
oh boy,
when you have
you're just getting crazy.
It's true, and so like her on life is just like beardiness turned up to 11, and so like life is just so good in my opinion, and it can turn around a fight because every cast you're restoring wounds on very expensive models. If you're running monsters, if you're running heroes. And so,
for those that don't know, Alariel gives +4 to cast on life with her own unit.
5.
Is that plus?
No,
okay.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about like I'm talking about now. The more recently I've been running combined with Eternity King list.
You're talking about end times. All right.
That said, any Alariel list, the new stuff she's running +5 with life. The old stuff she could run up to +8 with life.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, the newer, toughest elf that's ever lived. Toughness 4 elf. Ridiculous. Toughness 4 elves. What's next? Dog sleeping with
Alariel's toughness 4?
She is.
Oh, yeah. And 4 wounds.
Oh, my.
Yeah, the End Times Alariel is just bonker. Like, for 540 points, she is doing some work. It's pretty ridiculous. But all that to say, like, obviously, I lean towards life because of like I'm already seated well in there. That said, Shadow is obviously a very common default, and so I like to go a little bit off the beaten path. But all that to say is that with life, you can turn around a very bad fight. Mm-hmm. With Shadow, you can kill faster, but you're not going to be able to turn the direction around, to put troops back on the table, to put wounds back on characters. And so... to me, that's one of the big differences. You may see a swing of the 16% with weapon skill on the miasma, but if you land a Throne of Vines +4 toughness on an elf unit, like that, you know, that's going to move that wounds roll very significantly, and it's not going to only affect one unit; it's any unit that's in combat with that unit. So that can cut out your casualties. Like that can almost stop incoming casualties on that unit for a round.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go. All right, I don't want to go too deep into this. Let's. This isn't Warhammer life lore and why it's good. So I'll be very quick with mine. See, I think Warhammer Magic in 8th edition is about one thing. It's about 6 dicing spells. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a bad touch guy, but that's what this is. And anybody who says otherwise is selling you a bill of goods. You 6 dice spells, and if that 6 dice wins and goes off, then you know you will tend to probably do very well there. Watch like Sustainable Center and watch them 6 dice Savage Beast, and then watch Lances of Paladins explode whatever they're touching, right? And so to me, it's where am I going to get some weight out of that 6 dicing? And I'm going to go straight to Slaanesh. That's going to be my pick because Caco bombing is ridiculous and stupid and broken and absolutely destroys armies. It wins in ways that no other lore does. It takes that, adding O strikes last, beautiful. Adding random movement D6, beautiful. Doing it to every unit in a radius, beautiful. Causing automatic wounds, ignoring armor saves, and ignoring toughness, also great. Dropping a Caco bomb that goes off can just win you the game. Like one good resolved casting can just win you the game. Period. It's better than Dwellers, it's better than all that stuff that bombs a single unit. Yes, if you've got some giant horde break, you're not going to do as much damage as, any of the other, like, unit killers, Final Trans, or stuff like that, but I don't care. I just screwed that unit, because now it's ASL and random move D6, so you don't have control of it anymore, and now I get to pick my fight. So, that's what, that would be my argument. Like, there are other good spells in the lore, too. there's quite a few other good spells in the lore, but I don't really care because that's for dices. Those spells only get used for dice 7 through 12. Like that's period. Other than that, die 1 through 6 are called cacophonic choir. So there we go. That's my argument.
Keeping it simple.
That's right. No, as the wise man and poet Will Smith once said, no plan B, it distracts from plan A. All right, that's I think we should all take that to heart. All right. So there we go. We have our spell lores and our war machines. As I said before, put yours and your defense of that in the comments below. So now let's move on here with our Q&A portion, and they touch directly to some of this we've been talking about. Our first question comes from Matiram, and it is for Paul. And he says, Paul, most people seem to think that the lore of the Great Maw is a subpar choice. He disagrees, of course. But why do you think that is?
So I think that this is definitely an accurate statement. It's reflected in Swedish comp. You actually get a bonus to your caster if he's a level 4 with lore Great Maw. So clearly many people think that it's a poor lore choice. As an aside, I actually think that it's right at the power level that I would want lores to be. I think Magic should be part of the game, not game breaking. So I actually think that Lore of the Great Maw is right where it should be in terms of power level, and I think it's kind of go on par with like Orcs and Goblins Magic and things like that. But it's certainly subpar from the lore from the BRB books, and as you just said, like Snesh, and I even think it's a little bit worse than maybe High or Dark Magic, and that's because the versatility of the lore isn't there. Your good spells are Troll Guts, Toothcracker, and good lord, what's the other one? Bull Gorger. So strength, toughness buff, and then regen. And that leaves you with nothing to do when you're not in combat. The first 2 turns of the game, I often find myself standing there twiddling my thumbs if I don't have another caster or Fire Belly, something to throw at people. Bone Crusher is not a bad spell. 2d6 strength 2, no armor saves. I find that people, unless they're really observant and notice that I don't have anything else to do, will let it go through, and you can pick off wounds on things or knights or stuff like that. But it just doesn't have enough damage output to make a difference in the game. And I think that's where people really leave it. It's just at the end of the game when you're trying to collect points, if there's a small unit left or something like that, you just don't have the range. In combat, it's a great lore. I have nothing wrong with it. Casting costs and everything can be bubbled is great, but yeah, the range just isn't there for that lore.
I think that's a good answer, and I think you're right. There's definitely some element of versatility that makes a great lore, right? If it doesn't have one thing that just makes it overwhelmingly good, then it needs to have versatility. It needs to apply in lots of situations. I think that is something inhibiting, and I think you're absolutely right. All right, Matiram's next question for the group. We all have to put on our fortune teller hats. How do you see the spell lores changing in 9th? Do you think we will even have the basic rulebook lores that are present currently? If not, which ones are destroyed?
All right, so I'm going through my head right now and thinking of all the books that have come out. Do any of them not have a lore? I think they all do.
Oh, you mean like does any book that has been introduced in 9 not actually introduce a lore as well?
Yeah, because I think that all of them can select from anything, right? If I'm like, oh, Empire can't. Empire does not have a lore, so I would say that there's probably going to be, well, I guess Empire is supposed to be the first book rewritten, so that could change, but on the current course, I would have to say that they have to have some sort of spell selection. In terms of what that's going to look like, the only thing I can say is I sure as hell hope it does not function like the Kane End Times Magic functions, because I do not think that in the current setup that works. Maybe if you change the power generation mechanic or something like that, possibly, but I think it just adds an element of randomness. I would actually like, the only thing I really want tweaked is the miscast table. I've only ever been upset with the miscast table in terms of I don't think you should be penalized as much for throwing 2 dice at a fireball and getting double 6s as you should chucking 6 dice at, say, something like that. I think that the miscast table should scale with how many dice you threw at the spell.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, you're the one who would come up with the Steam Tank miscast table, right? That was your idea originally? The idea that you roll a d6 or something like that and add the number of dice you throw at it to get, and then like all the worst results are stacked up at the top.
Yeah, I've
your
put
idea
out some
originally.
ideas, something like that, but I think something along that lines would be much better because I don't know. I mean, there have been multiple games that stick in the back of my mind where I threw 2 dice at something not meaningful, not even being not even being cheesy or anything, but picking up some chaff or something, and then I stuck my 400-point wizard down the hole and lose the game on 2 dice spells, which I don't know. You want that chance, I suppose, the danger of magic, but you don't want that to influence the game that heavily and just be like, well, I lost this one.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a change. There's no doubt because I mean, the magic has already changed. There are incarnates running around who have these lores stuffed into them, right? And we know we've got the Incarnate Council coming in Archeon, so it would be very easy for them to change the lores given the stuff that's going on in the story. That being said, I don't think that they're going to like go away completely or something like that. They're all still here, even at this point in end times. So they might change or mutate in some fashion. But my guess is we'll see something, at least for the BRB lores, we'll see something echoing to them.
Yeah, I think that what we're probably going to see, given the lore that we know, is that a majority, this is all like pulling out of like prediction and tinfoil hat bullshit. But I think that we're probably going to be in the warp or something like that. And so I suspect that that'll change our miscast table. Like being sucked into the warp probably isn't going to look like what it does now. But I think that because we have the incarnates, we have I'm guessing that certain factions will have benefits with certain lores. Like, what I mean by that is, like, I think you'll have an overarching lore that everybody in the faction can take, or a couple overarching lores based on the incarnates that are associated with that faction. And then you'll have probably, if you have special racial-based casters, there may be racial lores that they get. So, for example, if you have an army of elves, dwarves, and humans, you may still see, and let's say that the incarnate of Heaven's Light and Shadow are left in that faction or whatnot. You could generally, like, you could still end up with racial if you have an elven caster, or you could end up with all the other alternate lores that are marked by that faction and the incarnate associated with it. I think we'll probably see something along those lines where you'll get a smorgasbord of the basic stuff, or incentivize certain with the basic stuff, and then couple that with probably racial lores. I don't think racial lores will go away.
All right. Good stuff. Our next question was from Kieran Dunleavy. So his question was, and this goes back to what we already talked about in Best the Best, what lore has the best signature spell?
In a vacuum, maybe Fireball. Maybe Fire, actually, just because you can buff it to the situation. In the context of an entire lore, I really do like Miasma. I'm a big fan of Ice Shard Blizzard. I think for the casting value, -1 to hit and -1 leadership is always pretty good. What else we got? Oh, what's that signature
Obviously,
spell
Spirit Leech ain't too bad.
Oh, Spirit Leech is very good. Spirit Leech is very good.
Spirit Leech. I'm a fan of Wissons just because there's not a time that I ever don't want more toughness and more strength.
It's a little bit expensive, I always feel like.
It is. It's got a high casting value versus a lot of the other signature spells. That is true, but it is also a potent effect. And if you can get multiple casters all humping on that spell, that's not a bad deal. If you can get 2 of those off, that's a big swing.
I guess also the high magic lore where you get two signature spells is pretty cool. I mean, being able to pick situationally based on your opponent, having one or the magic missile or the other one is pretty cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that utility is nice.
I think you're absolutely I think if I had to absolutely come down and pick one, I mean, I think I think that it would probably for me either be Miasma, whatever, or Ice Shard. I think Ice Shard, again, we're taking these just on face value of like this spell, no concern for the rest of the lore. This is just this spell in a vacuum, like you said. I think Ice Shard is terribly underrated. I think it's only dragged down by the rest of the lore, which is which I would actually say is another one that's probably actually fairly balanced.
Yeah.
Like it's not one of those ones that's too good and hence it's not interesting enough. But I think Ishard is horribly undervalued. I think it's absolutely backbreaking. Neg 1 to hit is a huge defensive bonus, like you pointed out with Miasma, and Neg 1 leadership is such a big deal if you end up winning that combat and they're not steadfast. I mean,
it's a huge deal.
How you win the game.
But even there are armies out there that even the -1, even if they are steadfast or stubborn, is a big deal. I mean, you talk about ogres, most of the time leadership 9, going down to leadership 8 rerollable. That's totally failable. You can fail that. I mean.
Yep.
So.
It's a good point. Yeah, the odds on that honestly it's a huge shift. Going from like a 9 to an 8 or an 8 to, God forbid, a 7 rerollable, that is, or God forbid, not rerollable. Those are huge probability shifts in how often that unit's going to break, right? It really does move it toward a coin flip as opposed to an outside chance. And, that's how games are won and lost. It's not won usually by grinding the unit to a stony powder, unless it's a particularly crappy unit. So yeah, I would have to agree. And so I think Ishard's great, and I also, but Miasma is just pretty solid, and it has the benefit of, if not in the vacuum, it is part of a really strong lore, right? So, yeah. Our final question tonight was from, I'm sorry, no, hold on. So Remington Steele said, "What is your favorite spell in each lore?" Remington, I love you so much. You were fantastic last week. You are out of your freaking mind if you think I have time to answer 22 lores. But I think you can extrapolate from this what some of my favorite spells are. You are the man, Mr. Steele. I love you, buddy. I'm not going to answer what my favorite spell is for 22 lores and then have us all do that. We need another hour-long show. So
what's your favorite one? Do you want to throw out one or two on, obviously Caco's up there.
Caco. Caco and Dreaded 13th. The D13, it's so good. It's so backbreaking. People whine so much when they get affected by it. They cry like little girly baby.
So my most fun one that can be destructive, Foot of Gork. Because I've seen that thing. I mean, it's totally random. And then when it comes down, I've had that thing come down like 8 times in a row. You can stomp the same unit. I've had times where it's just like, there goes your whole army.
Yep.
So for entertainment value, I think Foot of Gork is a good one.
I love Foot of Gork.
I'm going to throw out kind of a side one, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's called Ash Storm. It's out of...
God, that spell sucks balls.
Because it's out of a not real army. That's why nobody knows about it, Tom. It's not a real army.
Hey, it was in the map.
Let me just say, every time I play Cost of Wolf Army, they're like, cast a spell. I'm like, all right, is that the one where I can't do anything? No, okay. All right, is that the one where I can't do anything? Yeah, okay, I'll stop that one.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Ash Storm is a 24-inch hex. It's a 12 cast on it. That when it goes off, the unit that's hit gets neg 1 to close combat, or neg 1 to hit with close combat attacks, neg 2 to hit with shooting attacks. In addition, the target unit can't use its basic move and may not charge, march, or fly. The unit also treats all terrain as except impassable as dangerous terrain. Wizards in the unit can't cast spells unless they're targeting themselves. And any unit under the effect of the spell also gets treated as being flammable, and most of the units.
Goddamn flame cannons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
What? Jesus Christ. I mean, look, it's not a real army, so I don't care. You got any other fan books that have got cool lores in them? Because, I got this PDF back here I wrote for my alternate Tomb Kings lore. It's got some pretty sweet spells in it, let me tell you what.
It's in the... Hey, they were in the Masters. Shut your mouth.
If I go to the Games Workshop website
to remodel your opponent's
army
army, so it's bending over, ready to take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ridiculous. Yes, that's over the top by any standard of the imagination. So hey, there you go. But a good pick. It's perfectly cheaty. And Paul, I would have to say my response to that spell being on the table would be the exact same as yours. I set the dice aside and be like, look, when you cast that spell, these are what's going to that. There's no need for a poker face here, buddy. That's what's happening. Do whatever else.
I'm not going to pretend to be tricky. That's literally all I care about.
Yeah. All right, and then so we'll close out tonight with one final question from Mr. Lee Mechshop, and maybe we just answered it. What is your favorite bomb spell? So specifically focusing only on the bomb spells, the big droppers.
Foot, for me. Like,
Are
because
you
it's just
counting
so
that as
fun.
a bomb? I mean, I guess it kind of is. It's big. It's got a huge casting value.
And you're gonna throw 6 dice at it, and it's gonna smash your enemy's army, maybe your own, and maybe take out the whole line. Like,
Sure. I've already answered it for 2 questions. I feel like I'll answer it for a third. It's Cacophonic Choir, folks. It is the bomb of bombs. It is the bomb. It is a bomb. It's a good spell.
Like I like D13. Just
I cannot argue with that.
picking up models. I don't know. It's that or Dwellers. Dwellers has no like troop type restriction, so that kind of puts it a little bit higher. But it's just killing characters is just too powerful. Just picking up characters out of the unit, it's just
Well, there is no greater joy in life than having D13 in the hole when somebody sets down like Blight Kings, or will set down these Skull Taker, Monger, Wrath people who are all infantry and cost exorbitant amounts for 5 guys, and just being like, well, you made the wrong choice today, buddy. Sorry. Whoop. Pick up that unit. Can't fail.
even if I roll 4 ones, I'll still be happy about it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like this is a can't miss situation. This is slow pitch softball with with Babe Ruth. Like it's going out of the park. All right. All right. That's right. We're gonna close on a sports reference. That'll really connect with the audience.
did you have a surprise that you wanted to?
Oh, I did. Yes, I forgot to notate it. So here we go. Just like last week, Tom had his envelope. I got my Games Workshop order today, which contains the mystical black envelope. We will close out with this, with me opening my envelope and being disappointed. There we go. We can close on my sadness.
What does it say?
Sorry,
Thank you for playing.
At the top of the show. Yes, it'll say like thank you for playing. And bah, loser. There you go. I can be disappointed and not have 7 feet of product, but that's okay because I got miniatures I wanted, so I'm still happy.
I guess I didn't understand. What was the prize? You got 7 feet of products that you didn't really want.
200 centimeters.
Yes, you get 2.1 that tall, 2.1 meters tall of boxes of figs if you win, stacked on their back. That would be the win if I had a golden ticket Willy Wonka style. Yes. So there you go. No golden ticket for me. Alrighty. And with that, we bring our show to a close. Paul, thank you very much for being here. Very much appreciated, sir. Absolutely. You are welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you. Tom, as always, appreciate you being on here, and thank you. And for everybody else, don't forget to switch over to Materim's channel now and tune in for Narrations and Lamentations with Materim and the boys. I believe they're doing Beastmen tonight with Caleb Goodson, so that should be a good show. Because I know there's a lot of Beastmen players out there. No, you gotta know your enemy. I mean, for all the Beastmen on the table. No, they're an underrated but beautiful army. So go watch Materim and his boys talk about some Beastmen and have a good old time. But for now, we will sign off. Thank you again for watching Warhammer Weekly, and as always, see you next Wednesday.